So after a mixed bag decade of 1970s where India won in 1971 and they lost brutally in 1974 and they came really close to winning in 1979, we are now moving on to the decade of 1980s where India toured England twice, once in 1982 and once in 1986. And 1982 is really considered as an important tour because a lot of these youngsters, like Dileep Vengsarkar and Kapil Dev, who had already toured England once before, they were maturing enough and they were becoming senior big players. And along with them came players like Roger Binney and Madan Lal and Karsan Ghavri, Dileep Doshi, Sandeep Patil. These were the ones who really blossomed on that tour and who would eventually form a very stellar part of the 1983 World Cup winning Indian team. And that's why we have to understand that how 1982's tour helped them develop into the cricketers that they were and get them performing like how they did in 1983 World Cup. So 1982 was all about the battle of all-rounders. It was Ian Botham at his peak, and it was merciless Kapil Dev at his peak. I mean, 403 runs and 9 wickets for Ian Botham, and 293 runs and 10 wickets for Kapil Dev. I mean, these are the stats like any player. I mean, any player in today's generation would want to have either of those numbers. Yeah. I mean, there would be batsmen who would be wishing to score that, if they could get 300 runs in 3 test matches. And we are talking about 3 test matches. We're not even talking about 5 test matches. These were 3 test match series. And for an all-rounder to score almost 300 runs, 293 runs, and then also take 10 wickets in that series, including a brilliant 5-wicket haul at Lord's. Yes, India did lose the series 1-0, but I would say that we were down, but not out kind of thing. And talking about Kapil Dev, three of his 4 innings that he played in this tour, those were 50 plus scores. And in 2021 we are talking about strike rates, both in terms of T20s, and we are talking about strike rates in terms of test cricket also. Somebody like Cheteshwar Pujara, he still gets kind of criticized by a lot of cricketers that his strike rate is not good, and people like Rishabh Pant kind of excite viewers that with their hitting and with their strike rates. Kapil Dev scored 89 of 55 balls at Lord's, following on in a follow-on situation. Yeah. Now, how often do you see that kind of knocks, that kind of fearless knocks today? You want to add anything to that, Akshat?
I think for me, the moment you say 1983, it gives me a lot of goosebumps, and the reason it gives me that is because of the fact that we couldn't see, or we still cannot see, the match where Kapil Dev scored 175 of some 144 odd balls. Yeah. Like that's totally unacceptable, right? Like somebody coming in at that time in the peak of their career and whatever, scoring at that strike rate. So I know we're talking about India versus England right now, but whatever, for me, Kapil Dev is really that 175 that he hit in the Cricket World Cup. And you said Ian Botham and Kapil Dev were pretty head-to-head when it comes to the runs and the wickets as well. Who won the man of the series then?
The man of the series went to Kapil Dev. Oh, wow. But in the first match, man of the match was Kapil Dev. In the third match, man of the match went to Ian Botham. He scored what was then one of the fastest ever double centuries. And in the second test match also, he had scored a century. So we are talking about, two of the greatest all-rounders or of the quartet that was there back in 1970s and 80s. And Imran Khan and Richard Hadley being the other two great all-rounders. But this was the series where, I was just reading up where Ian Botham had already completed his double of 2,000 runs and 200 wickets. And Kapil Dev was coming to England at the back of 1,400 runs and almost 150 wickets. So they were getting there. The competition was just there. And, England Cricket Board earned £411,000 in that series.
Yeah.
Because people were just thronging the gates of these stadiums, and because they wanted to see such excitement. Yes, there were other cricketers also playing, but the focus, the center of attention of the series was just Kapil Dev and Ian Botham.
And just to just to give a perspective, I think in the 70s, like there was not like so much of sale of the cricket, of the tickets, and obviously I think this was one of the major sources of revenue for the boards as well. I think in 70s it used to be around like 10 to 15,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Here we are talking about like 411,000 pounds, right? Like as you mentioned, and it's such a big deal because a lot of fans, as far as I know, like came to see the rivalry of Kapil Dev versus Ian Botham, and I'm sure like would have happened if Imran Khan would have went to England, or Kapil Dev and Imran Khan eventually go ahead and play as well. Like this was such an era, and
because
I
these
feel
players
unlucky.
were these players were characters. I mean, you always associated some sort of excitement. When if they would be there on the field, you could sense that there's either a wicket coming or there's going to be a boundary coming. There's something unorthodox is bound to happen when these players are out there. So maybe over the years these kind of characters are not there in cricket anymore. But yeah, I mean we are still searching for. 27 years after Kapil Dev's retirement, we are still looking for a worthy all-rounder. That's where
I know
we stand.
I use Hardik Pandya a few times, but I do think I'm a bit guilty of saying that now, especially looking at his accomplishments and like what he did in the Test series, and even Ian Botham, right? Like I do remember there was this incident in the second Test match where he was playing really well and he hit, like as you said, like he posted more than 100 runs.
Yeah.
And after that, like, he was supposed to bowl to India and he had suffered like a major injury on his foot by a Yorker by one of the fast bowlers in India at that time. And like he didn't go to the hospital. He bowled about 20 odd overs to the to the Indian side, and then followed by that he had to undergo major scans, and he was deeply bruised as well. So like we are talking about like just as you said, like phenomenal characters. And I remember there was like he used to cut the ball a lot, and once he did, it hit Sunil Gavaskar's shin and he couldn't play the match. So these two are like
I saw that he was actually absent hurt in one of the innings. But apart from Kapil Dev and Ian Botham, there were also quite a few memorable performances. Dilip Vengsarkar, who in 1979 scored his first century on his first appearance at Lord's on his first appearance. Wow. He was playing this time again in 1982. He played a Test match at Lord's again, and he scored another century, which would be his second of his 3 centuries that he has scored at Lord's. So not many people have that kind of achievement, that kind of honors, to be there on Lord's honors board, and to see your name mentioned thrice over there. Wow. So. And Sandeep Patil, I mean, he scored a brilliant Test century. He scored 129, and there was an incident where he scored 6 boundaries. He scored boundaries on each and every delivery of Bob Willis. So yeah,
I think there was something with Kapil Dev also did in this series where he scored 4 boundaries.
Yeah, 4 boundaries. Yeah. And Sandeep Patil bettered it by hitting 6 boundaries of Bob Willis's over. So amazing. So yeah, these were some of the stories in 1982. Yes, India did lose, like we mentioned before, 1-0, but it was not kind of just a walkover that England never steamrolled the Indian side. We did lose the first Test match, but there was always competition, and there was always this sense that India might just come back at any stage of the series. And yeah, that's about 1982 tour.
Good stuff. Do you want to talk a bit more about what happened after the World Cup win in 1983, in 86?
So yeah, after that period of 1983 to 1986 was again like we mentioned in our 70s episode, that from 71 to 74 it was a golden age of Indian cricket. This time across all the formats, India had actually started doing well. So 1983 we won the World Cup. 1985 we won the championship, the Benson and Hedges Cup in Australia, where Ravi Shastri won Audi win as man of the series. And then came the tour of 1986, where India, after 15 years after winning their first series in England, they ended up winning not only just 1-0, they bettered it by winning the series 2-0. And again, this was again under the leadership of Kapil Dev. Kapil Dev, who had incidentally hadn't tasted any win in his first 21 test matches as a captain. So I mean, the number of losses were just 6. India had lost just 6 times out of those 21 test matches, but India hadn't won any of those test matches. So to taste your first test victory as a captain in England, and also and win a test match there twice, that's really some achievement. And
we could have won the third test match as well, if I'm not wrong. It's just that there were some miscalculations and not good initiatives that our team took in the third match, or it could have been a whitewash. I would have loved to see that after what happened in 74, right? So something very similar here.
Yeah, I mean, yes, people did say that there was again some leadership crisis in the English camp. David Garr was sacked after the first test match, after England lost the first test match, and Mike Gatting became the captain for the next 2 test matches. Ian Botham was not playing that series because he had famously admitted on television that he had smoked pot. So he was punished. He was being punished by the ECB for admitting that, for giving that kind of an interview and showing those kind of details. So yes, 1986. Yes, people may say that that England was not the side they were in 1982, but then that's cricket. Sometimes one team will always be stronger than the other, and it's just important that the strong that if a team is considered strong, then they really have to back it up with their performances. I mean, at the end of the day, those were alien conditions for India, and India did really well. Another big thing in that series was seeing the rise of a new fast bowler, Chetan Sharma. Now, Chetan Sharma is remembered in Indian cricket folklore, unfortunately, for getting hit for a 6 by Javed Miandad in Sharjah on the last ball. But there's a lot more to Chetan Sharma than just that incident. He was the person who took hat-trick in 1987 World Cup again in New Zealand, and he took 16 wickets in just 2 test matches in England. For a person who was not really heavily built, or he wasn't even as fit as a Kapil Dev, not as tall as Kapil Dev, but for him to come and back his reputation with that kind of performance, that was surely a start of a good career for Chetan Sharma.
I think I also remember because he was 20 years old at that time.
Yeah,
I mean, that's too young. And I remember because he was obviously very uncomfortable and nervous in the conditions, especially after all the media attention went to him after that 6, right? So I think his coach Prem Azad traveled with him to England just to ensure that he's fine. And before this, the tour matches or the county matches, right, which the team played, Chetan Sharma was a revelation. He was the best bowler there, and he also admitted himself that generally India was considered as a side that didn't finish off taking all the wickets of the opposition, and he wanted to make that contribution alongside Kapil Dev and ensure that India have a duo of fast bowlers that they generally lack in these conditions, right? And be able to take those 10 wickets. And they did it well in 1986.
Yeah, and I mean, no wonder, no surprise that Chetan Sharma became the first Indian bowler to take a 10-wicket haul in England. And that's actually quite a significant achievement in itself. That
still hasn't been done, right?
Maybe I think Bhuvneshwar Kumar did in one of these games in 2011 or in 2014. Ishant Sharma really came close in 2014, where he took 7 wickets at loss. But just have to dig up a bit to see that if any other bowler has taken 10 wickets. And
that's amazing.
That's about cricket in 1980s between India and England. And it ended off well because India won the series 2-0, and we now look forward to talk about India versus England in 1990s, and of course the rise of Sachin Tendulkar, the legend. So
and even Mohammad Azharuddin. Let's not forget him. We'll talk about him as well. So
thank you for watching.